Single-parent households, they just don't belong in a town like this. Can you keep that child of yours away from mine? I heard the words with my own two ears, as clearly as day. Right there, in front of the preschool gate, amidst the cheerful chaos of the morning drop-off. The voice, laced with venom, drifted on the breeze, mingling with the sound of children's laughter. My feet stopped moving, but I didn't turn around. I couldn't. I just stood there, frozen to the spot. The only thing that kept my heart from shattering on the pavement was the warmth of the tiny hand I was holding in mine. It's happening again. That's what I thought. Is it too much to ask for, to simply live a quiet life in this town? Is that something I'm not allowed to have? What do people see, and what do they choose not to see, that makes them want to cast someone out? I didn't get angry. I didn't let the frustration escape my lips. There was only one thought that formed in my mind, and I held on to it, turning it over and over again. Silence is not the same as surrender. There is a pride to be found in stillness. I know this, and I also know that the question, "Who is this woman?" is a question that will one day shake this entire town to its core. And so, I smiled. It was a small smile, one that nobody else could see. Until that day comes, I will say nothing. I will simply live my life in quiet dignity. And one day, the very people who look down on me now, without knowing a single thing about who I truly am, will be the ones to bow their heads. My name is Evelyn Sinclair. I turned 63 this year. Right now, I live alone with my 5-year-old granddaughter, Lily. Lily is the precious life my only daughter left behind for me. My daughter was taken from this world suddenly 4 years ago in a car accident. I will never forget that afternoon. It was around 4:30. I was in the kitchen, about to make a cup of tea. I'd just put some loose-leaf herbal tea into the pot and was waiting for the kettle to boil when the phone rang. It was the local police department. The moment the officer said, "It's about your daughter," the mug slipped from my hand. It hit the linoleum floor with a hollow crack and shattered into a dozen pieces. It was as if everything, the sound, the air, time itself had stopped. My daughter had been a nurse. She was on her way home after a long night shift. They told me she was hit by a car while crossing the street in a crosswalk. They rushed her to the hospital, but she never regained consciousness. Was gone, just like that. She was my only child. She was the most compassionate, kindest person I knew. She was my pride and joy. "Don't worry, Mom. When I'm older, I'll take care of you. We'll live together," she used to say. That bright smile of hers is burned into my memory. When I learned I would never see that smile again, I couldn't make a sound. No tears came. There was nothing. I just knelt there, unthinkingly picking up the broken pieces of the mug, and felt something inside of me, something vital, crumble silently into dust. From that day forward, the world lost its sound. Before then, I had been an ordinary homemaker. I divorced my husband when I was young, and after that, I raised my daughter all by myself. She was such a bright, gentle child. Her dream was to become a kindergarten teacher. The very spring she achieved that dream was when the accident happened. Standing before the framed photograph of my daughter, I made a promise. I will protect this child. After the funeral, I held my granddaughter for the first time, my hands trembling as I lifted the tiny, sleeping bundle from her bassinet. "Grandma's going to protect you now," I whispered into her ear. But honestly, I was filled with nothing but fear. After all, I didn't even know how to change a diaper anymore. I'd forgotten how to mix a bottle of formula. When my own daughter was raising Lily, I was always so busy with work that I was hardly ever able to help. I never imagined that I, a woman in her 60s, would have to become a mother all over again. But whether I cried or laughed, life had to go on. For this little girl, I had no choice but to get back on my feet. I bought parenting books. I watched tutorials on my smartphone, relearning everything one step at a time. The right temperature for milk, the correct diaper size, the little tricks to get a baby to sleep. I was fumbling through it all in the dark, but I could feel that maternal instinct, long dormant inside me, slowly starting to return. But the hardest part, the thing that hurt the most, was how much Lily's smile. looked exactly like her mother's. Sometimes she would catch my eye and flash that little grin, and a sharp pain would clench my heart. Tears would well up in my eyes. But I never cried in front of her. I couldn't. If I cried, I knew it would make her anxious. So I smiled. Every single day, I forced myself to smile for her. "It's okay, Lily. Grandma's right here," I'd say, patting her little back, repeating the words over and over as if trying to convince myself as much as her. Since then, we've been getting by on my meager Social Security income of about $600 a month. It's not much. We make it work by dipping into the small savings I managed to put away when I was younger. We are by no means wealthy, but I have always avoided one thing. No matter the circumstances, relying on others for help. I suppose I could go down to the county social services office and find some kind of assistance program. But the moment I picture myself sitting in front of a desk, filling out those forms, a thought rises up inside me. I am not living just to be helped. I remember one time, I desperately wanted to buy Lily a new picture book. I stood there in the store, staring at the price tag, then back at the contents of my wallet. We'd had some unexpected expenses that month, and there just wasn't enough money. That day, I did something my own mother used to do. I went out to the patch of woods behind our house and gathered wild dandelion greens and some young violet leaves. I made a simple wilted salad with a little salt and oil and a thin porridge. "Tonight, we're having a feast from the woods," I told Lily with a cheerful smile. I remember it so clearly. Her eyes lit up. "It's delicious," she said. That smile. As long as I have that smile, I feel like I can overcome any hardship. We can't afford luxuries, but we live with two things in abundance, more than anyone I know: pride and love. We couldn't afford to live in the city, so I rent a small, weathered house in a quiet residential area in the suburbs. The roof leaks when it rains, and the winter cold seeps right through the floorboards. But if it's a place where Lily can laugh and be happy, then it is more than enough for me. We moved into this old rental house just after the memorial service for my daughter. It was too painful to stay in the apartment filled with her memories, but I had nowhere else to go. Finally, I found this little single-story house, tucked away on a quiet street in this sleepy town. At first, I tried to avoid everyone. I'd take the trash out at the crack of dawn and drive to a supermarket in the next town over to do my shopping. I was terrified of running into the neighbors. I was afraid they would ask questions. "Where's your husband? Is that your daughter? A grandchild? What happened to her parents?" I didn't know how to answer. "My daughter passed away. It's just the two of us." Even though it was the truth, I knew that a single sentence like that could change the way people looked at you. I had seen it happen before, so I chose to say as little as possible. I would just smile and offer a polite, "Good morning." Even so, I could feel the coldness in my neighbors' eyes. When I walked down the street with Lily, I could feel their gazes on us, like little pinpricks. I could almost hear their thoughts. "Whose child is that? Are they mother and daughter?" But the age difference? I started walking with my eyes fixed on the ground. One morning, I offered my usual greeting. "Good morning," I said with a small nod. The woman didn't even glance in my direction. She just walked right past me. Still, I didn't stop saying hello. Because when I am holding Lily's hand, in that moment and that moment only, I can stand tall, knowing that I am someone's mother, someone's grandmother. In our neighborhood, there's a small park, an old-fashioned main street with a few shops, and one preschool. That's where we walk every morning. We hold hands as we go up the little hill, where cherry blossoms bloom in the spring and a carpet of fallen leaves covers the ground in the autumn. But I know there are people who watch us on that walk, who look at our clasped hands with cold, judging eyes. A single-parent home is a bad influence on the neighborhood. A child with no father, how pitiful. You have to wonder about the upbringing, really. It's not uncommon for me to hear whispers like that carried on the wind. But I never say anything back. I remain silent, offer a small smile, and squeeze Lily's hand a little tighter. You see, I have another side to me, a former self that no one here knows about. In my younger days, I lived a life that was the complete opposite of the one I live now. I sealed that past away. For Lily. For my daughter. But a person can never truly discard their past. No matter how many times you change your clothes or switch your perfume, there is a scent that lingers, something that never truly washes away. Today, in this town, I live as just some old woman on a fixed income. I thought that was enough. But I would soon learn that my silence could create ripples I never could have imagined. I have a past that I have never spoken of to anyone here. Until 10 years ago, I was a professor at a major university. I also served on the board of directors for an affiliated research foundation. My days were a blur of meetings and lectures. Perhaps it was from watching me that my daughter chose a path in medicine herself. But on that day, the day my daughter was taken from this world, in that accident, I made the decision to leave it all behind. Every title, every position, every shred of my former life. I submitted my resignation to the university. I even had my legal name changed. The prestigious titles on my old business cards, the newspaper clippings with my photograph, they're all buried at the bottom of a cardboard box now. If you were to ask me why I went to such lengths to hide my past, the answer is simple. I wanted Lily to live the life of a normal child. I didn't want her to be the granddaughter of someone famous. I just wanted her to be Lily, who lives with her grandma. I wanted her to laugh and play without the weight of anyone's expectations or scrutiny. People might find comfort in a distinguished family name or a prestigious background. But I believed that all my granddaughter needed was the simple comfort of an ordinary, peaceful life. So I gave up my name and my titles, because as a mother and as a grandmother, I believed that protecting the future was far more important than clinging to the past. One day, I received a phone call from Lily's preschool teacher. "Mrs. Sinclair, do you have a moment?" From the tone of her voice, I knew instantly that something was wrong. On the other end of the line, the teacher hesitated before she spoke. "Lately, we've been hearing from some of the other parents. They've expressed the opinion that maybe it would be better if the other children didn't play with Lily so much." I quietly drew in a breath. May I ask why?" The teacher paused for a long moment, then told me the truth. "It seems that some of them are uneasy about the fact that she doesn't have a mother and is being raised by her grandmother," she continued, her voice heavy with apology. "They're saying things like, single-parent households often have problems. That kind of prejudiced thinking. Prejudice. How many times had I felt the sting of that word?" I managed a small smile into the receiver. "I see. Thank you for letting me know." But after I hung up the phone, my knees gave out. I sank to the floor right where I was standing. An unspeakable weight settled onto my shoulders. What on earth had I done wrong? All I am doing is raising my grandchild with love and care. I wake up earlier than anyone to make her lunch. When she comes home, we read picture books together. At night, I sing her lullabies so she can fall asleep feeling safe and sound. And yet, just because we are a single-parent household, we are seen through this distorted lens. The thought sent a sharp pain through my chest. That night, as I watched Lily sleep, I fought back tears. Her soft, childish cheek looked so much like her mother's did at that age. "I'm so sorry, Lily. I didn't even know who I was apologizing to." The next morning, I walked Lily to preschool, just like always. The sky was still a little overcast, and the crisp winter air felt cold against my cheeks. As we approached the preschool gate, I saw a few of the other mothers standing there, talking. The moment they saw me, they started whispering to each other. Then, I heard one of them say, just loud enough for me to hear, "Look, it's that family." The words made me stop in my tracks. I felt that familiar tightening in my chest. As I always did, I bowed my head deeply and offered a greeting. "Good morning." But one of the women, the one who had spoken, turned her back to me without so much as a glance, as if I wasn't even there. Lily didn't notice a thing. "See you later," she chirped and ran happily toward the door. I felt a sense of relief watching her small back disappear inside. I managed a faint smile, but I could feel a hot sting behind my eyes. I haven't done anything wrong. I know I haven't. Still, I said nothing to anyone. I silently turned and walked away, making my way quietly back home. When I got back, I sat down on a chair in the kitchen. The tea I had warmed up earlier was already growing cold. I slowly took out my wallet and opened the little notebook I used to track my expenses. The water bill was a little higher this month, and I needed to buy heating oil soon. But then my eyes fell on a note I'd made. I had promised Lily a new sketchbook. She loves to draw more than anything, and it was the one thing she really wanted. There it was, written in the margin, Jean, sketchbook, $5. 0F. I stared at the words for a long moment. Then, I gently closed the notebook. "We'll have to wait a little longer," I whispered in a voice so quiet no one could hear. I was saying it to myself. And I felt another little part of my heart quietly close itself off. Outside my window, I could hear the neighborhood children laughing and playing, but the sound felt very far away. I just sat there, quietly folded my hands, and closed my eyes. Please, let her have a good day today. That was the only prayer I had left. That was the only thing I could do. After closing my budget notebook, I quietly pulled an old photo album from the closet. As I turned the pages, I came across photos of my daughter when she was still in medical school. There was one of her in a white coat, standing at a podium in a lecture hall, speaking confidently into a microphone. I remembered that day. She was giving a talk at a community health fair, organized by the hospital. The topic was fall prevention for seniors. It had been raining that day, but so many people from the neighborhood had come with their umbrellas, lining up to hear my daughter speak. "Your daughter's voice has a special quality," one of the other nurses told me once. "It has a way of moving people." I remember so many of them saying things like that. She was my pride and joy. And now my granddaughter Lily is being pushed away, ostracized, simply because she is from that family. In the very society that my daughter gave her life to serve, the precious life she left behind is now being forced to live in the shadows. I closed the album softly and took a deep breath. As her guardian, what can I do? In the stillness of the night, it was the only question I could ask myself. The neighborhood association meeting was held a few times a year at the local community center. On that day, I walked over with Lily, holding her hand, and we arrived right on time. Lily sat quietly on a corner of the rug laid out on the floor, nestled closely beside me. The agenda was mostly focused on community safety and the walking routes for school children. People took turns speaking, and I just sat and listened quietly. That's when it happened. An older man stood up and said something that made the air in the room go still. "You know, lately, with the children at the preschool, it seems we have a child in the neighborhood whose behavior has been a bit of a concern. Apparently, the child comes from let's say, a somewhat complicated family situation." The words, spoken by the head of the neighborhood association, didn't cause an immediate stir. No one gasped or whispered. Instead, a strange, heavy silence descended upon the room. But then something happened, something that made the air grow thick and cold. For some reason, every single person's gaze drifted, ever so slightly, in my direction. No one made direct eye contact with me, not a single person. But the air itself, so quiet and so heavy, was an accusation. I could only look down at my lap, at my hands, and I reached for my granddaughter Lily's small hand next to me, gently wrapping my fingers around hers. I felt her little hand squeeze back, her tiny fingers tightening around mine with a strength that belied her age. In that moment, to keep the tears from showing, I closed my eyes. If we have caused any trouble, I do apologize. My voice was a whisper, so soft I wasn't sure if anyone had even heard it. No one responded, no one acknowledged my words. The chairman simply cleared his throat and moved on to the next item on the agenda. But that silence, that heavy, suffocating silence, was, for me, a rejection, more final and more profound than any angry words could ever have been. The community center meeting room was wrapped in a kind of damp quiet. The only sounds were the rustle of papers, one sheet turning over, then another. The insistent, rhythmic tap-tap-tapping of someone's ballpoint pen against a folding table grated on my nerves. A few people sighed, small, weary exhalations, and with each one, the atmosphere seemed to sink even lower, pressing down on my shoulders. But the thing that tightened the knot in my chest, the thing that truly wounded me, was the way everyone so blatantly looked at me. They were stolen glances, quick and sharp. The woman sitting diagonally across from me met my eyes for a fraction of a second before her own darted away, a flush rising on her cheeks as if she'd been caught doing something shameful. From the row of chairs behind me, I heard the faint creak of someone shifting their weight, followed by a hushed whisper. See? Just like I said nothing. I offered no defense. The only thing that kept me grounded, the only warmth in that cold, sterile room, was the feeling of Lily's small hand, which had found mine and was holding on for dear life. That small point of contact was the only real thing in the world. It's happening again. The thought was a familiar ache, a painful clenching deep in my gut. I thought I had escaped it. I thought by moving here, by starting over, I had left that part of my life behind. But the past has a way of finding you, no matter how far you run. I should have known that. I did know that. But knowing doesn't make the pain any less sharp. After the meeting was adjourned, people filed out, gathering their coats and bags. A few of them, as they passed by my chair, gave a perfunctory, shallow nod in my direction, their eyes fixed on the exit sign. Not a single person spoke a word to me. It was as if I were a ghost. As if I wasn't even there. On the walk home, under the pale glow of the streetlights, Lily looked up at me, her small face etched with confusion. "Grandma, why was that man so angry?" she asked. I tried to smile, but I could feel the tremor in my lips, a betrayal of the calm I was trying so hard to project. "He wasn't angry, sweetie. I think maybe everyone was just a little worried about something." As I said the words, I lifted my gaze to the sky. The winter sky was a deep, endless canvas of cold, dark blue. It stretched on forever, high and indifferent. But for some reason, looking at it felt bracing. It was a clean, sharp cold that seemed to cut through the suffocating atmosphere of that room, and in a quiet corner of my heart, a thought began to form, solid and clear. As long as I have this child, I will not lose. No matter how lonely it gets, no matter how many cold stares are thrown my way, I will live with my head held high, proud to be this little girl's grandmother. That night, long after Lily had fallen asleep, her soft breaths filling the quiet house, I went to the old wooden dresser in my bedroom. From the very back of the bottom drawer, I pulled out a plain manila envelope. Inside were a few of my old business cards, tucked away and forgotten. The title, the affiliation, they belonged to a completely different person, a woman who no longer existed. The woman I used to be. But I didn't tear them up. I just looked at them for a long moment, then gently slid them back into the envelope and returned it to the drawer. "I have a more important name now," I whispered to the empty room. "The most important name of all. Lily's grandma." I said the words aloud, testing their weight in the stillness of the night. Then I went to the kitchen, put the kettle on, and made myself a cup of tea, letting the warmth of the mug seep into my hands as I tried to warm the frozen corners of my own heart. That day had started like any other. I woke up early, as I always did, and after a simple breakfast, I took my granddaughter's hand and we walked out the front door. The air had a distinct autumn chill to it now, a crispness that hinted at the winter to come. But as I reached for the latch on our front gate, I stopped. My eyes fell on a piece of paper, stuck squarely in the center of the gatepost. It was a sheet of thick white cardstock, like something from an art class. On it, written in large, bold letters with a black marker, were the words, "K.E.E. Bjor Single. Parent trash away from our children." The letters weren't printed from a computer. They were written by hand, neatly, deliberately, with the careful strokes of someone practicing penmanship. Each letter slanted slightly to the right. This wasn't an impulsive scrawl, dashed off in a fit of anger. This was a considered act, a verdict, delivered with cold, dispassionate intent. The four corners of the paper were secured with pieces of heavy-duty, transparent double-sided tape, pressed down so firmly that no autumn wind could possibly tear it away. I stood there for a long time, just staring. No words came to me. I was aware of my granddaughter looking up at my face, her expression one of innocent curiosity, but all I could do was slowly, mechanically, reach a hand toward the paper. My fingers were trembling. I couldn't tell if it was from the morning cold or from something else entirely. I carefully peeled the paper from the post, folding it in half, then in half again, while a single thought repeated itself in my mind. So, this is what it's come to. I felt no anger, no sadness. Those emotions had been worn away long ago, eroded by 1,000 tiny slights. What bloomed in their place, deep in my chest, was something else entirely. A quiet, but profound, resolve. Lily can't read yet. She didn't know what the words said. But she must have sensed the tremor in my hand, because she looked up at me, her brow furrowed with concern. "Grandma, what's wrong?" I forced a smile onto my face, the kindest, gentlest smile I could manage. "Oh, it's nothing, sweetie. Just some old flyer. Let's go. We'll be late." I slowly reached out again and began to peel the paper away. The double-sided tape clung stubbornly to the wood, as if it were trying to permanently affix its poison to my home, to my very heart. I had to pull gently, careful not to tear the paper but firmly enough to get it free. I could feel the small, uncontrollable shaking in my hand, but I focused on lifting the paper cleanly, keeping it straight. I held it carefully, as if it were a piece of crucial evidence, so as not to bend or crumple it. And looking at those hateful words, I thought again, this time with a chilling finality. I see. This is the line. I didn't say it out loud, but the words settled like stones in the pit of my stomach. For years I had told myself the same things, over and over. Be patient. Endure it. They'll understand eventually. Don't make waves, not for the child's sake. But this single sheet of paper, with its carefully written venom, silently and utterly negated all of that effort, all of that restraint. No tears came. I was long past tears. Instead, I felt something inside me snap, a clean, sharp break, like a dry twig underfoot. Holding the folded paper in my hand, I closed the gate. I said nothing. I thought nothing. I simply walked back inside the house, and I walked directly to the back of the hall closet, to a drawer I had not opened in years. When we got home from our walk, I didn't stop in the kitchen or the living room. I went straight to the built-in shelves in my study. On the top shelf sat a small, locked wooden box. A box I had sealed shut 15 years ago, when my daughter was still in college, and had never opened since. The sound of the tiny key turning in the lock seemed to echo in the silent house. Unnaturally loud. Inside, nestled on a bed of faded velvet, were a few photographs. A picture of me, younger, speaking at a conference podium. A formal shot of me in a business suit, standing on the steps of the U.S. Capitol, shaking hands with the president. Beneath the photos were certificates, letters of commendation, and finally, a single, business card-sized ID. White House Council on Women and Girls. Senior Policy Advisor. Term: 1996-2007. The faint scent of cedar and old paper wafted up from the box, and the air that had been trapped inside for over a decade slowly mingled with the air of my quiet, new life. The contents were neatly arranged, as if they had been put away only yesterday. Folded documents, sealed envelopes, all in perfect order. On the very top was my old government identification badge. The title, Senior Policy Advisor, the White House, was slightly faded but still perfectly legible, etched into the plastic. Beneath it lay several awards and official citations, but my hand stopped when it reached a particular envelope, tucked away at the very bottom. Inside was a sheet of stationery, and on it, a handwritten note from the president himself. "Evelyn," it began, "I want to express my deepest gratitude for your years of dedicated service. It is impossible to put into words the light that your wisdom and your character have brought to the policies of this nation." The handwriting was elegant, precise. Each letter seemed to represent a year of my life, a piece of the work I had dedicated myself to. And there was one more thing. A single sheet of paper, its corners softened and creased, showing the signs of having been read and reread many times. It was a copy of a speech I had given long ago, a speech my daughter had loved. When she was in high school, she used to practice reading it aloud in her room. Every life holds a story that has yet to be told. To listen to that voice, the voice of the unheard, is the truest form of intelligence and the deepest form of kindness. She loved those words. Wame! I remember her telling me, her voice soft with conviction as she held the pages of my speech, that she wanted to be a doctor who could listen to people's pain. The memory was so vivid, it was as if I could hear her voice in the room right now. I closed my eyes, my fingers gently tracing the objects in the box. It was because of you, I whispered to her memory. It was because of you that I was able to do any of it. In that moment, I knew. No matter what anyone said, no matter what anyone wrote on a piece of paper and stuck to my gate, this child's smile and this past I held in my hands were my pride. They were my foundation, an anchor that could never be shaken, never be erased. Looking at that old ID card, I felt a part of myself that I had deliberately submerged for years. The old me slowly opened its eyes. I picked up the card, held it in my palm, and let out a long, slow breath. I've been quiet long enough, haven't I? The words weren't directed at anyone. They were a statement to myself. And as I said them, I felt something fundamental shift inside me, a complete and total reversal. Ever since my daughter died, I had lived my life in hiding. I changed my name. I abandoned my career. I chose to live as nothing more than an ordinary grandmother. I did it all for Lily. I never wanted her to be branded as a special child. I didn't want her to be the granddaughter of a White House advisor. I just wanted her to be Lily. A happy little girl who laughed and played and didn't have a care in the world, but now faced with a reality where the simple words, single-parent household, were enough to have her excluded, to have her marked as trash. I could no longer stand by and watch. I stood up and placed the ID card and the presidential commendation into a clear plastic sleeve. I went to my old laptop, booted it up, and found the long dormant file, my curriculum vitae. I printed it out. I closed the wooden box and took another deep breath. Then I went to my desk, opened a drawer, and took out a sheet of heavy cream-colored stationery and a fountain pen. How many years had it been? The act of putting my serious thoughts, my real words, onto paper for someone else to read. But my hand, surprisingly, was steady. It felt just like it used to, all those years ago, when I would stay up late into the night, drafting policy proposals and reports. I uncapped the pen, and with a quiet resolve, I touched the nib to the paper and wrote the first word. I wrote slowly, carefully, one letter at a time. I would not let my writing be guided by emotion, but it would not be without feeling. I poured the weight of my conviction into every word, every sentence. At one point, I paused and looked out the window at the darkening sky, but then I returned to the page. I kept writing, breaking a long, self-imposed silence. And at the very end I wrote, I have chosen silence for a long time. But for the future of this child, silence is no longer an option. When I finished, I set the pen down and carefully folded the letter. I felt a great weight lift from my shoulders, even as I knew that the path I was now choosing would bring a different, heavier burden. But for the first time in years, I felt no hesitation. I could choose this path without a single doubt. A steady, certain light was burning quietly within me. I added one last line on a separate note. I am not sending this for the sake of my own honor. I am sending this for the sake of creating a town where children, in the future, will not be discriminated against because of the shape of their family. I sealed it all in an envelope, and before Lily came home from her playdate, I walked to the corner and quietly dropped it in the mailbox. On that day, for the first time, I decided to face the life I had sealed away. The next morning, I woke a little earlier than usual. It was the first time in a long while that I felt I had truly slept. Soft autumn sunlight streamed through the window, carrying with it the faint, sweet scent of the late-blooming osmanthus bushes in the yard. I took a deep breath, then gently placed the wooden box, which I had polished the night before, into my tote bag. Today, I whispered to myself, I will finish this. With that thought firmly in my mind, I went about my morning routine, making Lily her breakfast and then walking her to preschool, our hands clasped together. Lily squeezed my hand tightly and smiled up at me. That smile gave me all the strength I needed. At 7 o'clock that evening, the emergency meeting of the neighborhood association began. It was held on the second floor of the community center. The same faces were there, sitting in the same chairs, listening to the agenda with the same impassive expressions. But there was a tension in the air tonight, something sharp and brittle. I sat quietly, waiting for my turn to speak. I said nothing, simply rested my hand on the wooden box inside my bag, using its solid presence to calm my nerves. Finally, the moderator called my name. Mrs. Sinclair, did you have something you wanted to say? I rose slowly from my chair and walked to the front of the room, holding the wooden box in both hands. Every eye in the room turned to me. But this time, I did not flinch. I did not look away. My name, I began, my voice clear and steady, is Evelyn Sinclair. The moment I said my full name, the atmosphere in the room shifted. It became sharp, taut, like a wire pulled too tight. A few people exchanged confused glances. One man, the same one who had made the comment at the last meeting, started to shift in his seat, as if to stand up and say something. But when I placed the letter I had written on the table, he froze. He slowly sank back into his chair and lowered his gaze to the floor. In the corner of the room, a young mother, the one I had seen glaring at my granddaughter in the schoolyard, just last week turned her face away abruptly, her hands twisting the hem of her cardigan. Someone coughed. The sound of a pen clattered to the floor, but no one moved to pick it up. I was not afraid of their silence. In fact, I welcomed it. It felt, in a strange way, like a silence I had finally earned. After my daughter passed away, I came to this town to quietly raise my 5-year-old granddaughter. I slowly opened the lid of the wooden box and took out the first item. I calmly unlatched the old wooden box I'd placed on the table before me. How many years had it been since I last opened this lid? Inside, the evidence of a life I'd left behind was stored with meticulous care. From among the documents, I first removed a single, deep blue fountain pen and placed it gently on the table. This pen had signed my name to dozens of official reports and policy recommendations. It was the instrument that had inscribed my signature, my mark of responsibility, on documents that affected thousands of lives. It was a symbol of the quiet resolve that had guided my every working day. Next, I slowly drew out a single sheet of stationery. It was the handwritten letter of thanks I had received from the president. The ink, even after all these years, was still a vibrant blue. And the final line was clear for all to see. Your quiet strength helped protect the future of this country. I didn't read the words aloud. I simply placed the letter in the center of the table where everyone could see it. I could feel the air in the room change. I could feel it on my skin. No one spoke, they just watched, holding their breath. The cold, judgmental stares from before were gone, replaced by something else entirely: shock and a dawning awareness. The woman they had looked down on, the simple grandmother from a single-parent home, had once been an anonymous force working to protect the children of this country. To protect, in fact, their very own families. I did not raise my voice. I did not make accusations. I simply placed the facts on the table. And that alone seemed to communicate something more powerful than words ever could. This, I said, picking up my old ID card, is my official letter of appointment from when I worked at the White House, where I was in charge of policy regarding the protection of women and children. One by one, the expressions around the room began to shift, becoming serious, intent. For 11 years, I worked on initiatives to support single-parent households. I dedicated my career to protecting the futures of countless mothers and their children. My voice did not tremble. Gway! I placed the documents on the table with a sense of profound pride. I am not showing you these things because I believe a past title makes a person important, I said, finally looking up and meeting their eyes, one by one. I am showing you these things to make a single point. I let my gaze sweep across the entire room. No one, not a single one of us has the right to judge a child's future based on their parents' job or the structure of their family. Silence. A complete and utter silence. The words that were written on that note, I am not here to blame anyone for them. I bowed my head deeply. But I am here to ask you for one thing. Please, I am begging you, let my grandchild be treated the same as any other child. That is all I ask. That alone will be enough for me. Ah! A silence fell over the room. It was never that I wanted to hide who I am as a person, I continued, my voice softer now. It was only that I wanted to protect my granddaughter's future. The moment I spoke those words, I felt something that had been coiled tight deep inside my chest, finally, gently, begin to unwind. For years I had lived my life by bowing my head, by lowering my voice, by trying to erase my own presence from every room I entered. As the grandmother of a single-parent household, I had truly believed that the best thing I could do for my grandchild was to simply get through each day as quietly as possible. But today was different. Right now, in this moment, I was standing with my head held high. I had stated my name clearly, and I was speaking my heart. The dozens of pairs of eyes staring at me from across the room no longer felt as if they were looking down on me. In fact, I felt my own spine straighten, a natural, unforced lengthening, as if, after so many long years of silence, I had finally stepped back into myself, standing once more as a complete person. In that silence, I felt that I had finally reclaimed a part of myself I thought was lost forever. I felt that I had finally been able to put into words the true meaning of what I had been trying to protect for this child. But in this new silence, I no longer felt the cold sting of judgment. Someone in the room gave a small, almost imperceptible nod of their head. Following that small gesture, a few more people quietly lowered their eyes, and then, one by one, heads all around the room began to nod in understanding. It was about a week later, on a quiet afternoon. When I checked the mail, I found a single envelope in our little mailbox. The return address was that of the president of our neighborhood association. With a bit of apprehension, I carefully opened the seal. Inside, a short letter was written on official letterhead. Dear Mrs. Evelyn Sinclair, we would like to express our deepest gratitude for your words at the recent meeting. We feel that your experience and your perspective would be an invaluable asset to our community, and we would be honored if you would consider serving as an advisor to the Neighborhood Association Board. The moment I finished reading, I felt a great weight lift from my shoulders. It was as if something that had been dormant deep within my heart for a very long time had quietly, gently opened its eyes. We would be so grateful to have the benefit of your years of experience and wisdom, the letter continued in its polite, formal tone. But I did not write back right away. That evening, during that quiet, peaceful hour while Lily was taking her afternoon nap, I found myself standing by the kitchen window. I just stood there, unable to move, looking at the small pot of chrysanthemums I kept on the windowsill. A gentle breeze stirred the air, and the petals trembled ever so slightly. In that moment, a thought formed in my mind, a quiet whisper to myself. If they've invited me, not because of the name I used to have, but because of the person I am today, then that's all right. After so many years, I no longer have business cards or fancy titles. But in the life I built, in the quiet days spent with Lily, I have cultivated something else, something just as real. It was later that day, as the afternoon sun was just beginning to cast long shadows across the yard, that I heard them. Two sets of small footsteps, pattering in unison, coming up to our front gate. "Grandma, I'm home," Lily's cheerful voice called out, followed immediately by another, smaller voice. "Hello." The owner of that second voice was the little girl of the young mother, who had given me such cold, sharp looks at the meeting that day. Before I could even register my surprise, the two of them, holding hands, were already running into the yard, chasing after the red ball that sat in the grass. No one had prompted them. No one had made a formal introduction. With nothing more than a simple ball and the shared, unspoken desire of children to simply play, they had become fast friends. I watched them from the kitchen window for a moment, a quiet warmth spreading through my chest, and then I put the kettle on to boil. A few minutes later, I stepped outside and called over to the woman who had once met my eyes with such prejudice. Would you, would you care to come in for a cup of tea? She looked a little startled, a little hesitant, but then she nodded. Uh, thank you, she said, bowing her head slightly as she came inside. She took the warm mug I offered her with both hands, holding it gently. We didn't say a word. There was only the steam rising from our cups and the sound of the two girls laughing, their innocent joy echoing from the yard. Those sounds filled the space between us, a gentle, healing balm. It was a moment in time when the gap between us, a chasm that words could never have bridged, was quietly, peacefully beginning to close. After a little while, she set her empty cup down and quickly ran out to join her daughter. I watched her go, and a quiet thought settled over me. I never wanted to win a fight against anyone. I never wanted to prove anyone wrong, or to show off my past. All I have ever wanted is for Lily to grow up without having a label like your family is different, attached to her. I want her to become a child who can believe, deep in her own heart, that she is cherished and loved no matter what her family looks like. It was for that reason that I chose silence for so long, and it was for that same reason that I finally chose to speak. And now, at last, I felt like we had taken a single step forward, that a place for us, for my daughter and me, was beginning to form within this community. As dusk settled, the sound of two children's laughter drifted in through the open window. I stood at the stove, slowly stirring a pot of the stew that Lily loves, and whispered a small promise into the quiet of my own heart. Lily, your future will be your own. I promise. One evening, I found a small paper bag tucked inside our mailbox. Inside were a few carefully wrapped homemade cookies and a short handwritten note. Lily's smile always brightens my day. There was no name signed at the bottom, but I recognized the handwriting immediately. It was from her. The woman who had once watched me and Lily from a distance, with such cold, judging eyes. Even after the meeting, she hadn't suddenly changed her attitude. We hadn't exchanged any words, but these cookies, and this one simple sentence, even though it wasn't a direct apology, it felt like proof. It felt like a true sign that she had, in her own way, finally acknowledged us. I arranged the cookies on a small plate and called Lily over. Lily, look! Someone left a very kind gift for us for our afternoon snack. Lily's face lit up with a huge smile. I want to say thank you, she said. Her simple, earnest words soaked into my heart. The feelings that are exchanged in silence. Sometimes, an unspoken, I'm sorry, can be the most sincere apology of all. As I watched Lily happily munching on a cookie, a bright smile on her face, my mind drifted back over the long road we had traveled. The anxiety of the day we first moved in. The past I wanted no one to know about. The long days of choosing silence. The heavy weight of the phrase, single-parent household, had threatened to crush me more times than I could count, but for Lily's sake, I had kept on, living as quietly as I could. There were times I wished someone would understand. But now I have Lily's smile. And for the first time, she has a friend sitting beside her. And here in my kitchen, there are homemade cookies and a short, warm note. Maybe that was enough. I whispered quietly to myself. Perhaps true strength isn't about raising your voice. Perhaps it's about continuing on, day after day, even if no one praises you, even if no one is watching, to live a life where you never let go of kindness, where you never let go of sincerity. I can see now that, for me, that is what true strength really is. Even after everything that happened, my life hasn't changed all that much. I still live with Lily in this old house. But now, on Saturday afternoons, I've started inviting the neighborhood children over. We have a little story time where I read from picture books or tell them old folk tales. It's always a warm, happy time, a place where the sound of children's laughter mingles with the quiet sound of my voice. On Saturday afternoons, I set up a few small chairs on our front porch and tell stories to the neighborhood kids. I never put up a flyer or made any formal announcement. I suppose Lily must have told her friends how much fun she was having, because little by little, more children started to show up. The children who used to watch us from a distance, the ones whose parents used to hurry them past our house with their eyes averted, they now sit right in the middle of the group, as if it's the most natural thing in the world. During one of the stories, I overheard a little boy lean over and whisper in Lily's ear. Lily's grandma has a warm voice, doesn't she? I continued reading, but I felt a gentle warmth spread through my chest. I don't need to speak of prestigious awards or fancy titles. If the children who gather here can feel safe and happy listening to my voice, if my stories can bring a smile to their faces, then that alone feels like a quiet reward for the long road I've walked. Lily has completely settled into the community now. She's become a child who laughs easily and talks a lot. She used to keep her eyes downcast, but now, the sight of her looking straight ahead as she runs up to me with a picture book, saying, "Grandma, read this one today," fills my heart with a quiet joy every single time. One afternoon, as Lily and I were getting dinner ready together, something happened. She had been watching me intently as I peeled carrots at the sink, and she suddenly asked a question. "Hey, Grandma, were you someone important a long time ago?" I stopped what I was doing for a moment and looked at her. In her clear, bright eyes, I saw pure curiosity mixed with just a hint of awe. I smiled slowly and reached out to gently stroke her hair. "What I was a long time ago isn't very important, sweetie," I said softly. "What matters is that we're living a good life right now." Lily just said, "Oh," and nodded her little head, then went back to happily arranging the vegetables on the counter. I have no intention of clinging to the titles of my past or the glories of a life I no longer lead. This time, right here and now, laughing with Lily and sharing a meal at the same table, this is the now that holds more value to me than anything else in the world. "When I grow up," she said a moment later, "I want to be someone who works for other people, just like you, Grandma." I nodded quietly and replied, "That's a wonderful dream to have. But always remember this. It doesn't matter what you become. What matters is that you live your life without comparing yourself to others, that you believe in yourself, and that you walk your own path with your head held high. That is more than enough." Lily thought about that for a moment, and then a bright smile spread across her face. If she can grow up believing that she never has to be ashamed of her life, then there is nothing more I could ever ask for. I don't want her to brag about what I've done. What I want, more than anything, is for her to believe this one simple thing. I have the right to live my life honestly and openly. That is all. Right now, I am no one in particular. I no longer need titles or the approval of others. I am simply a grandmother, living my life quietly and with pride. In the mornings, I water the flowers. In the afternoons, I share some of what I've cooked with our neighbors. In the evenings, Lily and I sit side by side and watch television, and at night, I sometimes write letters. This ordinary, everyday life that so many people have, this is the proud peace that I have finally found for myself. And in the quiet of these peaceful days, I continue to hold a prayer in my heart. It is a quiet but steadfast prayer from a grandmother that Lily will be able to walk through this world with her head held high. In the evening, the familiar sound of Lily's small footsteps echoes in our kitchen. "Grandma, what are we making today?" she asks, tying her little apron around her neck. Her movements are so natural, so full of joy, it's almost like a sacred ritual. I've never ordered her to help. But every single night, of her own accord, she comes to help me. The serious look on her face as she peels a carrot, the little proud set of her shoulders as she washes the rice. Every one of her small gestures overlaps with a memory buried deep inside me. a memory of another little girl, my own daughter. When she was small, she, too, used to stand beside me in the kitchen just like this. She would always say, "I want to be just like you, Mom," dreaming of becoming a person who looked at home in a white coat. Now, seeing Lily next to me, stirring the pot of miso soup, it feels in some way like a continuation of that time. It made me realize once again that life is passed down quietly from one generation to the next, that the desire to be by someone's side, to be of service to others, was a thread that connected my daughter to Lily, strong and unbroken. One day, I was out in the garden, watering the flowers as usual. Over the gentle sound of the water spraying from the hose, I heard a bright voice from the direction of the gate. "Grandma, what's the story for today?" I looked up and saw several children standing at the gate, looking in at me. It wasn't just Lily. It was the neighborhood kids, the same ones who used to look away, who used to hide behind their mother's legs. They were looking right at me with open, friendly eyes, and they had called me Grandma. In that moment, I felt something inside my chest finally release. Something that had been stretched tight for so very long. Finally, quietly, slowly began to dissolve. That Grandma wasn't a name born of pity. It was a name spoken with a natural warmth and trust. I gave them a little wave and smiled. "Today," I said, "I think I'll tell you an old story about the man and the moon." As I listened to the sound of their small feet running toward me, I thought to myself, "Ah, finally! A quiet, ordinary life has finally returned to us." That night, after Lily was asleep, I turned the lights down low in the living room and sat alone at my desk. I gently opened the drawer and took out that small wooden box. It had been closed for so many years, but tonight I opened it. I took out each item, one by one, and gently wiped away the dust with a soft cloth. Old business cards, letters of commendation, handwritten notes, a well-used fountain pen. I carefully placed them all back inside, closed the lid, and turned the key in the lock. But this time, it wasn't an act of sealing something away. I held the box to my chest and whispered, "It's all right now. She can walk with her head held high." It was a feeling not of pride, but of profound relief. From this day forward, even if I don't belong anywhere, as long as this child can look straight ahead and walk on her own 2 feet, that is more than enough. I knew this now, with my whole heart. I placed the box back in the far corner of the drawer and quietly turned off the light. In the stillness of the night, there was a definite ending and a soft, gentle beginning. My story is not a special one. The honors and titles I once held, the quiet way I stepped back from that life, and the way I found my voice once more, all of it was done for one simple reason: to protect one small grandchild. Silence is not the same as strength, but sometimes it can be a form of kindness, a way of protecting others from being hurt. But if that silence begins to cast a shadow over the future of someone you love, then perhaps that is when we must find the courage to speak. The path I have walked has not been a glamorous one, but if Lily's smile waits at the end of that path, then I know that it is more than enough. And to you, the person watching this screen, may I ask you a question? Have you ever been hurt by a misunderstanding? Do you carry somewhere in your heart the loneliness of not being seen for who you truly are? If you have a past that you've never been able to speak about, please leave your feelings in the comments section of this video. I don't want pity. I just want to be seen with clear eyes. And if there is someone in your life who seems a little tired, who is walking with their head down, please gently share this story with them. I believe that the quiet courage of one mother, the steadfast prayer of a woman trying to raise a child to be proud of who she is, can one day bring warmth to someone's heart. Please don't ever forget. No matter what past you carry, no matter how many times your voice has been taken from you, we all have the right to live with our heads held high, because every life holds its own unique light. I'll be waiting for your comments after you've finished watching. I am not living my life to be pitied. I am living to be respected, and in the hopes of creating a world where children like Lily can laugh without fear. Please share this video. If you subscribe to our channel, we will continue to bring you stories that speak to your heart. And before you close this screen, maybe you could say just one small thing to your own mother. Thank you. Thank you for living your life with integrity.